Why Bitcoin is going to hit zero. We're going to watch a video that I saw on YouTube Shorts that reached millions of people. I think 2 million views, so it went viral, especially because Bitcoin crashed and everybody's doubting the effect, not the effectiveness, but the value of Bitcoin and whether it's going to bounce back or not. So let's debunk some of these bullshit claims from these people and yeah, let's get into it. Let's watch.
You may have noticed that crypto's crashing again, like it did in 2022.
So you already notice here, they write Bitcoin is crashing, and this guy, Ben McKenzie, he says that crypto is crashing. So from the start, he doesn't distinguish the difference between crypto and Bitcoin. These are two different things. I've already made videos about this. You can go and watch it. But crypto can mean a lot of things, you know. Bitcoin is entirely different. Bitcoin does, of course, incorporate cryptography in its technology, but Bitcoin and crypto are two different things, and they shouldn't be confused, or they shouldn't be mixed up, or they shouldn't be referred to as the same thing. They are not. They are two different things.
2022, 2018, 2013. You get the picture. But there's something different about this crash.
And also the funny thing that he mentions all the times where Bitcoin crashed, and of course we already know this Bitcoin crashes every 4 years with the 4-year cycle, but he doesn't mention that Bitcoin bounces back and makes another all-time high each time after the crash. So this is like confirmation bias. He only focuses on the times where Bitcoin crashes, and he just pretends like Bitcoin doesn't bounce back.
That you need to know about. Crypto has always gone through boom bust cycles, but now, thanks to loosening regulations, people can buy financial products that give them exposure to Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies through the regulated stock markets. They're called ETFs, and over $100 billion worth of crypto was bought by ETFs in the past 2 years, as the size of the market seemed to only go up. But in October of last year, after Bitcoin briefly reached an all-time high price of $125,000,
Actually, $126,000, but whatever.
investors began to take some risk off the table and sell their shares of these ETFs. The result, the price of Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies has nosedived. As of the time of recording this video, Bitcoin is down nearly 50% in just 4 months. So what happens now? Well, we'll see how much actual money is backing these cryptocurrencies. When people sell their shares of the crypto ETFs, the Wall Street firms that issue them, like BlackRock, turn to the crypto exchanges like Coinbase to actually sell Bitcoin. But if there aren't enough buyers, then the price starts plunging. What's the floor? Well, zero. As I and many economists much fancier than me have argued, Bitcoin is an unusual investment in that there is no product or service behind it.
It's always these fancy economists who like to make these bullshit predictions and who like to say this Bitcoin is an unusual investment, or it's a speculative asset, or it doesn't have inherent value and it doesn't have intrinsic value. It's always these PhD economists from prestigious universities and all this bullshit. So let's listen here what he says.
Produces no revenue stream. Essentially,
I'm gonna rewind here.
investment in that there is no product or service behind it, and it produces no revenue stream. Essentially,
So first of all, Bitcoin is not a product, okay? Bitcoin is money, and money is not supposed to produce cash flow. It is not supposed to produce a service. Although Bitcoin does have utility value, as in it's censorship-resistant money, it's permissionless money, it's decentralized money that cannot be controlled or frozen by any government, by any corporation, by any bank. So that's the utility value of Bitcoin. But Bitcoin is also the ultimate store of value. So that's the value of Bitcoin, and that's why we use it. Money is not a service. Money is not supposed to create cash flow. Money is not supposed to create a product. And that's what these economists do not understand. Although they are economists, they should understand what is money and why it shouldn't be treated, or it shouldn't be it shouldn't be valued based on the criteria that we value stocks or companies or whatever.
Bitcoin, you're buying bits of computer code, uncorrelated with any real-world asset. This is different from buying a share of stock in a company like Google or Apple, whatever you think of it.
It's true, actually. It's different from buying a share of stock from a company because companies can always issue more stocks and therefore dilute your investments. Whereas Bitcoin has a supply cap of 21 million coins and it will never go over that supply cap. In other words, the Bitcoin that you buy will never be diluted. Okay? Just like if you own dollars, the dollar is gonna lose at least 7% of its value each year because that's the amount of dollars that the central bank prints each year. The same way with companies, stocks. When you buy a stock, you have no guarantee that the company is not going to issue more stock and therefore dilute your investment.
And trust me, I have thoughts. They are businesses that make products, provide services, and produce profits. And as a shareholder, you benefit from the company's success in the form of an appreciating stock price and or dividends. Cryptocurrencies have none of that because crypto doesn't do anything besides.
Well, of course, like I've said, cryptocurrencies, there is a shit ton of cryptocurrencies, and then there is Bitcoin. Let's take, for example, XRP. So XRP, I forgot the name of the company. Anyway, I already made videos about XRP, but the owners of XRP, they issue XRP out of thin air and then they sell it to you. Okay, so there is a company behind it, there are people behind it who profits from selling you this shitcoin. Whereas Bitcoin, there's nobody behind it. Bitcoin is not a company, it doesn't have a CEO. Nobody's selling you the Bitcoin. People are buying Bitcoin. So a lot of people think this Michael Saylor is like the CEO of Bitcoin or something like that. Michael Saylor is not selling you Bitcoin. Michael Saylor buys the Bitcoin and he sells financial products that are based off of the Bitcoin. So you can either buy his financial products or you can just go and buy Bitcoin yourself and you don't need Michael Saylor. So this is the difference between cryptocurrencies and Bitcoin. Bitcoin is not a company, nobody controls it, and nobody sells you the Bitcoin, okay? Whereas cryptocurrencies, they are companies, they are all companies, they all have people behind them, they all have insiders, they all have people who want to make money off of selling you that cryptocurrency, whereas Bitcoin is not. That's the fucking difference.
Offer bros something to gamble on, and criminals a way to get paid for their crimes. In December 2022, I testified to the Senate Banking and Finance Committee, saying that the cryptocurrency industry represented the largest Ponzi scheme in history. Why was I testifying? Well, you might know me from TV, but
I actually have to stop here. So when he said that cryptocurrency is the largest Ponzi scheme in history, I would agree when it comes to other cryptocurrencies, but I would not agree when it comes to Bitcoin. Because what is a Ponzi scheme? A Ponzi scheme is where someone promises you a certain amount of returns and then he pays you he pays you the returns from new investors' money. So he brings new people, takes the money, gives the money to all their investments, and it keeps going. That's a Ponzi scheme. Like I've said, nobody's behind Bitcoin. Bitcoin doesn't promise you any amount of returns. We buy Bitcoin because we understand the fundamentals of Bitcoin. We understand that Bitcoin is sound money and that it has a supply cap. That's why we buy Bitcoin. Mathematically, Bitcoin has to go up since the dollar is going down. Mathematically, Bitcoin is gonna keep going up because it's scarce. It's just how it is. Okay, it's logically it makes sense. So that's why we buy Bitcoin. It's decentralized, it's permissionless, all the other perks of Bitcoin. But the reason why people buy Bitcoin, or at least I should say, the people who buy Bitcoin for number go up, they do it because they understand, or at least some of them understand, that when you buy something that is scarce and something that has a supply cap, you know that it's going to keep going up.
Actually have a degree in economics. Yes, that's right. And Mackenzie is a secret econ dork. For the past 4 years.
Yeah, you are actually an econ dork and you don't understand shit about economics. Like, I'm sick and tired of these economists who, whenever you ask them about something, they tell you they have an economics degree. I don't give a fuck about your economics degree. I don't give a fuck about credentials, okay? Give me an argument or shut the fuck up. We don't care about your degrees. We don't. In fact, if you went to university and if you have an economics degree, you are more likely to not understand proper economics.
I've been investigating and documenting fraud in crypto. It's led to a book on the topic with Jacob Silverman, who's been talking about this stuff with More Perfect Union for years now, and I'll be releasing a movie I directed in theaters this spring. Crypto is a Ponzi scheme. I stand by those words, and we may soon find out the ramifications. The problem with crypto being tied into our regulated financial markets is the contagion effect. If crypto were to continue to crash violently, the selling of these assets would push the prices of crypto companies down, which can lead to the selling of other companies. Play stupid games, win stupid prizes. Here's hoping that the crypto crash we're currently experiencing doesn't take the rest of the regulated financial markets down with it. Fingers crossed.
So yeah, like I've said, a lot of crypto is scams and bullshit and Ponzi schemes, as he said. I actually agree with that. But my pet peeve is that when these economists like to link Bitcoin with crypto, Bitcoin is not just any other crypto. Bitcoin is the first, well, it's the first successful cryptocurrency, and it's also the only digital asset in the world that doesn't have an issuer, that doesn't have a person behind it, that doesn't have a company behind it, and it's completely decentralized. And it's let's just say, like what Michael Saylor likes to say, it's Satoshi's gift to the world. Okay, so nobody's behind Bitcoin, nobody's promising anyone that Bitcoin is going to give you any sort of returns, because that's the reason why it's not a Ponzi scheme, and nobody's managing Bitcoin's profits or money. So Bitcoin is not a Ponzi scheme because nobody's managing it. Okay. And speaking of economists and econ dorks and people who like to mention that they have a degree in economics. I don't have a degree in economics. I'm an English graduate. I studied English studies and literature, but I'm very much interested in economics, and I've studied a lot of Austrian economics. And I have a lot of interest. I don't like to box myself into one title, so I don't really care if you have an economics degree or not. Give me an argument. Credentials are just appeals to authority, and they are not an argument. But this thing, I already made a video when Andrew Tate was talking about Bitcoin as well, and I mentioned that he is right. Most economists are dorks. And they are not just dorks, they are actually charlatans, and they're employed by the government so that they would justify whatever the government wants to do, and they will just create some sort of bullshit economic justification for state policy. But here is the thing. I actually met I think an American. Yeah, he was an American. I met him in China, and he's a boomer. He's old, and we were talking. I didn't even mention Bitcoin. Some other guy mentioned Bitcoin, and then he told me, "Well, I will stick to my ETFs and my index funds and my stocks. All this boomer talk." And I didn't want to be an asshole, and I didn't want to embarrass him, and I didn't want to be obnoxious. So I just told him, well, tell me what you think about Bitcoin. Tell me what you think. And he said, with all this crypto bullshit, is not because, and he said, I told him, yeah, I actually agree with you. There is a difference between crypto and Bitcoin, but Bitcoin is different. Okay, Bitcoin is sound money. And he said, well, listen, this is my field, and I have a PhD in economics. And I was like, oh my God, another econ dork who, instead of giving me an argument, he tells me that he has a PhD in economics. Listen, buddy, I don't give a fuck about your PhD. I don't give a fuck about your degree. Give me an argument. So I told him in the most respectful way, well, tell me what is sound money? What do you know about sound money? What is it? What makes something money, and what makes something sound money? And he looked at me like this. He was kind of confused. And I told him, well, you have a PhD in economics, so you should know what is sound money and what is money and what makes something money. And why did the world choose gold as money throughout history? And he went into this rant about all different kind of things. Basically, he talked about everything except what is money and what is sound money. And like I've said, I didn't want to be an asshole. I didn't want to embarrass him. I didn't want to be, I didn't want to embarrass him, let's just say. And so I told him, well, listen, here is why gold was selected, of course, by the markets to be the money, and then why Bitcoin is just digital gold and it's better than money. And I explained to him in the most respectful way, knowing that I will not, of course, change his mind during one conversation, but I just wanted to tell him that, listen, I don't have to have a PhD in economics to understand economics. I don't have to have a PhD degree in economics to understand what is money and what is sound money. In fact, If you have a PhD in economics, you are more likely to be confused about what is money. Because the kind of economics you study in university is just charlatanism, it's just Keynesian bullshit. And they do not teach you proper economics. They don't. And so, yeah, that's the moral of the story. Whenever you hear someone preface his argument with the fact that he has a PhD in economics, or that he has an econ degree, or that he's an econ dork, just know that's actually a sign that they don't understand economics, and they don't know what is money, and they don't know what is sound money, and they are more likely to tell you that Bitcoin is going to zero. So I'm just telling you here, Bitcoin is not going to zero. Bitcoin always crashes. Bitcoin is quite volatile. And as Michael Saylor likes to say, volatility is a gift to the faithful. And people who are faithful are people who understand Bitcoin, are people who have conviction because they've done their homework. And they know what is money, they know what is sound money, and they know what is Bitcoin. And so if you did your homework, if you watched my videos, if you've read books about Bitcoin Austrian economics, you would know that this crash is gonna pass. Okay, it's not gonna last forever, and Bitcoin is gonna bounce back. So you might as well go and buy Bitcoin now while it's still cheap. All right. So yeah, Bitcoin is not going to crash to $0. That's never gonna happen. And if it happens, go buy it because it's gonna bounce back later on. So that's all I have to say in this video. Let me guys know what you think in the comments below. Subscribe to my channel. Follow me on X. I'm active on X and I do post every day. And see you in the next one. Take care.